Yuriy Kuzobov gets his revenge versus the world champion. It just wasn't Magnus Carlsen. Instead, the Ukrainian Grandmaster gets a big win versus the current world senior champion, Vlastimil Jansa, and this is how he did it. After the move knight to e3 attacks the bishop on g4, Black had a tough question where unfortunately Jansa chose wrong. In the game he took on f3, but bishop h5 would have been a move to keep the pin and maintain the tension a little longer, mainly due to the fact that you can meet h4 with the move g4. And while white is still definitely better, the attack still has a lot more room to improve before Kuzobov's pieces run completely off the rails and checkmate the black king. Instead, in the game, Jansa took on f3, perhaps forgetting that the young kids these days break chess principles all the time. They don't need to take back on f3 with the queen. Instead, I'll take back with the pawn, breaking classical chess motifs, doubling my pawns, but of course doing so for the chance at a dynamic attack. D takes c5 was met with a recapture, and after another trade, we see Kuzobov go full onslaught, h4, the h-file is opening up, and Jansa really never had a chance to recover. The move knight to g7 probably could have been followed with the move h5 here. This would have been a little bit slower for white, although note that the move in the game, knight g4, even at the cost of sacrificing itself, is still pretty darn good for Kuzobov, and probably white goes on to win in almost just as good a fashion. Instead, black took back on g5. Here comes knight to g4, and with the check on f4, suddenly we have threats of knight f6, checkmate on the board. Jansa didn't know what to do, so he moved the rook and ran the king. Unfortunately, it was just for a couple more moves because he resigns on knight d5 check. The main point being that no matter where this king comes to along the d-file, not only is white dealing with options like knight to b6 and just winning the queen, but even better from my perspective is to take on f4 and king to c6. We actually have a forced mate in 10, one of the fun ones I wanted to show you. Bishop b5 check, king b6, and we go full puzzle rush. Queen e3 check, sacrificing the bishop, sacrificing the pawn. The king doesn't take it, but that just allows our queen to inchworm her way into a checkmate on the b5 square, where the rook holds every possible escaping action on the d-file. So, interesting stuff here from Kuzobov. He performs well, bouncing back from his loss to the current world champion Magnus Carlsen in round 1 to win his game in round 2 against the world senior champion from the FIDE Chess.com Grand Swiss on the Isle of Man. Remember, you can check out daily coverage by International Master Anna Rudolph and Grand Master Daniel King. Of course, we also need to remember what's at stake. Magnus Carlsen is playing at the Isle of Man, but he can't win a prize to play against himself. Somebody else is going to take that big spot and have an opportunity to win the candidates to play for the world title in November 2020. Thanks for tuning in and seeing what was a very, very fun game for me to follow when it was happening live. Congrats to Kuzobov for bouncing back, and we will see you around on Chess.com.